Hey, and welcome back to Drama Recap. It's Ronnie, and hello. Thank you for tuning into this new video. Before we get started, I wanted to just go ahead and thank everyone for the support and the views on my last video for Deaf Noodles. I had no idea that that video would become pretty popular and amass a large amount of views in such a short time. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who subscribed. Definitely really good to see that a lot of people are, I guess, liking what I'm doing over here. So let's keep it going. I do apologize for not having a video out at all last week. I had to travel for work a bit, only for 2 days and not very far, but still, it was just a lot between work and getting a new video out. So here I am now. So let's get started. Today's video, we are going to be talking about two topics, so kind of different than some of my other videos. It's going to be two things kind of primarily covered. The first is going to be talking briefly about Jennette McCurdy and her new book, and then the second part of the video we'll be talking about Britney Spears and Kevin Federline. So if you're interested in one of those topics over the other, feel free to skip over to that particular section of the video. I'll have like chapters, down below, so you can feel free to listen to both, listen to one or the other, whatever you feel like doing. First, with Jennette McCurdy, she actually released a new book last week on Tuesday called I'm Glad My Mom Died. It is a memoir that she has written. This book has been kind of out in the sphere for a long time. I think ARC copies had went out to a couple of people, and I know she was doing some interviews and podcast podcast interviews over like the last year or so to kind of promote this book coming out, and she talked a lot about what the writing experience was, but I primarily want to talk a little bit briefly about some of the content that has come up in the book and some of the discussions around the content. Obviously, the name of the book is very intense and kind of upfront. I'm Glad My Mom Died is a really intentional title, and Jennette has talked about this in some interviews over the last couple of weeks that she's been doing, talking about the book. She had this interview on, I believe it was Good Morning America, where she said that anyone who has come from an abusive parent situation, they will kind of understand and know exactly what this title means and get it right away. Lucky, I would say, both my parents were very loving and nurturing towards me, so I do not have that experience, but I definitely can sympathize with people who have had a tough upbringing, and listening to her interviews and listening to some people review and talk about the book. I personally have not read it myself. I don't think I'm actually going to read it. I am a huge reader, as you could tell, bookshelf behind me. I do like to read. I do read primarily fiction. Sometimes I'll read nonfiction, but I'm just not a big memoir person. And personally, I don't really like reading about heavy topics that are covered in this book. And Jennette goes into a lot of details about how her mom forced her and pushed her into acting and was very emotionally manipulative of Jennette from a very young age, using Jennette, her mother, using Jennette's sympathy for Jennette's mother's cancer diagnosis against her, and just ultimately putting her and her siblings in a very unhealthy place. I know they were very religious growing up. Jennette talks about this in her book. Her place of living was constantly kind of in a state of chaos, and how Jennette felt the only way to bring calmness was to please her mother and keep her mother happy, and that's what she did with acting. But her mother was always very paranoid and would not leave Jennette alone. She talks a lot about how she was very sexually repressed, not allowed to know about sex or like things like birth control, and had her mother inspecting her and showering with her well into her late teenage years. Same with her older brother. It was really horrific listening to some of her stories and listening to reviews of this book talk about a lot of that stuff. Jennette also gets into her Nickelodeon days, and she talks about dealing with the creator, who people are assuming she is referring to Dan Schneider, who has his own set of kind of allegations and things with him. So if you want to learn more about that, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there about Dan Schneider. But Jennette talks about how he was very abusive and controlling on set and would throw, temper tantrums. And if he would not get his way, then it would just be the end of the world for everyone involved. And how he constantly held the fact that he made these children celebrities and stars over their heads, pointless petty things. And Jan Schneider, a horrible person. Jennette, I think, also is very reflective, and she is able to talk a lot about her relationships to her two main co stars when she was in Nickelodeon. First, obviously, being Miranda Cosgrove, who was the star of iCarly, Jennette playing Sam Puckett, her best friend. And she talks about how, in a lot of ways, Miranda was really like her first friend and how they were very close. And it sounds like Miranda was very supportive, which is really good to know. It also seems like everyone involved in iCarly was very supportive of Jennette herself. And then with the revival happening a couple years, like last year or the year before, it sounds like all of them were very respectful of her decision to not participate. And it sounds like they are still close-ish. Jennette has talked about how her and Miranda were, distant. They were close for a while, and then they kind of had some distance. And now it seems like they might be at least on better terms. Not that they were ever on negative terms, but she also talks a lot about Ariana Grande, allegedly in the book, because again, I haven't read it. Just what I've seen from interviews and people reviewing the book, it sounds like Jennette has taken a lot of the responsibility of her anger towards Ariana Grande, with being just kind of projections of jealousy of Ariana being able to do all of these extra things at Nickelodeon while Jennette was never able to do that. Jennette's mother also did die when she still was on Nickelodeon, when she was still starring in Sam and Cat. She talks a lot about how she just jumped back into work and didn't process any of that trauma she went through, and basically just took it out on Ariana Grande. There are some maybe conflicting or unclear reports whether they are now in a better place, or kind of what is going on with that. But I would be interested to learn a little bit more about how Jennette's siblings are reacting to this. That's something that I have personally not come across on social media. I don't know if it's been talked about, if her siblings have spoken out or in support or against her. So I'm very curious to see what their whole feeling and perspective on this whole situation is. But that's kind of everything with, Jennette McCurdy that I wanted to discuss with her book. There's not much I can say without actually reading the book. And so, yeah, moving on then to another topic. Britney Spears and Kevin Federline have been in the news a lot recently about, Britney's parenting and her relationship with her kids. And basically, what it comes down to is Kevin Federline shared some videos online of Britney reprimanding her children. These were videos from a couple of years ago, I believe 3 to 4 years ago at this point, because her children were, I think, 11 and 12 in the videos, and now they are 15 and 16, I want to say, or maybe 16, 17. They are very close to turning 18, which means that Kevin Federline and his new wife are very close to running out of Britney's money that she is providing to them. Britney has been providing child support to Kevin ever since the conservatorship started, and ever since Kevin and Britney had been divorced. And so now people are kind of accusing Kevin of just using this for a bit of clout, for a bit of money to cash in some interview time. I personally hate Kevin Federline because he was in support of this conservatorship. At one point, he has said that it did save Britney's life, which may or may not be true. We don't know. She was going through a whole lot because of him at that time when the conservatorship was put into place. He acts like he's kind of innocent in this and that he was just a bystander who happened to have children with Britney, when he actively contributed to her mental health issues when they were married. It's not like he didn't do anything or that he was the perfect husband to Britney. That definitely was not the case. Now, all of these years, he's been collecting these checks every single month or whatever it's been, while Britney has completely supported her children and Kevin and his new wife's lifestyle, all through forced work that she was forced into, that he contributed to. And now for him to come out and try to say that she is being a bad mother and that she is, her kids don't want to be around her because of her actions and antics on social media, specifically with her posting pictures of her basically either being or insinuating nudity and saying her children are very embarrassed, which they might be. As a 16, 17-year-old boy, yeah, I'm sure it can be hard to have your mom posting these very provocative images on social media. but like that's not a universal experience, or that is a universal experience. It's not an experience to them, and that is not a reason to then kind of try to call out Britney and say that the kids don't like her. Also, he just a couple of years ago filed for like sole custody because of Jamie Spears, Britney's father, having a physical altercations with one of Britney's sons and saying that he didn't want them around him anymore. But then he's going around and saying that the conservator was such a good idea, the conservatorship was such a good idea, and that he thinks Jamie did really well in the conservator role. Like, all of these people are just still trying to gaslight and control Britney, and it's just so sickening and annoying. And Kevin Federline is a loser, and I'll say that, and I think everyone agrees that Kevin Federline is a loser. The only reason anyone knows who he is because he dated, married, and had children with Britney Spears. If he did not do that, no one would know who he was. The only reason he got a flop of a record deal in the first place is because he was Britney Spears' husband. And that may not be true. That's all alleged and my opinion. So, don't get mad at me or whatever. But that's all I really have to say about that topic as well. I know these were two kind of quicker topics. I didn't really have much to say about either, so I wanted to combine them into one video to have a bit of a full-length, longer video to post out onto YouTube. Thanks so much, and until next time when we have more celebrity or YouTube drama to talk about, I will be back. Bye.